The All Blacks may have walked away from Cape Town with a 38-21 victory over the Stormers, but the final score tells only part of the story. For more than an hour at DHL Stadium, New Zealand were pushed hard by a brave and disciplined Stormers side, and the match exposed several areas that Dave Rennie will know must improve before the All Blacks face the Springboks. It was also a game that produced some important selection questions, particularly around the performance of Beauden Barrett, the scrum, discipline, and the team's ability to deal with the high ball. At the same time, there were plenty of positives for Rennie to take from a match that gave his side a much tougher examination than many people expected. The occasion itself was historic, with the Stormers hosting the All Blacks for the first time, and the Cape Town crowd of more than 47,000 created an atmosphere worthy of the rugby's greatest rivalry tour. The All Blacks entered the contest as clear favorites, but the Stormers quickly showed that they were not interested in simply making up the numbers. New Zealand started positively, and Samisoni Taukeiaho opened the scoring with a try from a powerful rolling maul. It looked like the beginning of a comfortable evening for the visitors, but the Stormers responded by putting pressure on the All Blacks in areas where New Zealand should normally be strong. Discipline became an early problem for Dave Rennie's team. Anton Lienert-Brown was shown a yellow card following a dangerous tackle, while Simon Parker was also sent to the sin bin after repeated line-out infringements. The Stormers took advantage of the extra space and eventually found their way over through veteran forward Deon Fourie, who once again showed why he remains such an influential figure despite being close to 40 years of age. Fourie's performance was one of the standout stories of the night. His experience, physicality, and ability to make smart decisions under pressure gave the Stormers a genuine platform throughout the match. The home side then continued to challenge New Zealand in the second half, and Fourie was again involved when he helped create a memorable try for former Blitzboks star Sibelo Sinatla. With the Stormers back level, the All Blacks suddenly found themselves in a genuine contest. For a team expected by many observers to win comfortably, this was a warning that the opening matches of the tour would not necessarily be straightforward. The Stormers were also dealing with their own problems. Injuries forced Imad Khan, Ruan Nel, and DeWalt Duvenage from the field, while their unusual 6-2 bench split forced Hachiva Dayamani into a different role. Eventually, the All Blacks began to find more space and rhythm in the final quarter. Rico Ione, Leroy Carter, and Josh Morby all crossed the line as New Zealand finally created separation on the scoreboard. The Stormers fought until the end, but Asafo Amua had the final say for the All Blacks as New Zealand completed a 38-21 victory. The result was important, but perhaps even more important for Rennie was what the match revealed. One of the biggest talking points was the performance of Beauden Barrett. The experienced fly half entered the match with plenty of attention on him, particularly because the contest gave him an opportunity to strengthen his position in the All Black selection picture. His experience and reputation are unquestioned, but this was not a flawless performance. There were moments when Barrett showed exactly why he remains such a dangerous player. His skill, awareness, and ability to create opportunities were visible during the early stages of the match. However, there were also mistakes that stood out. The All Blacks struggled under the high ball, and Barrett was part of a backfield that did not always look comfortable dealing with the Stormers' aerial pressure. Passes also went astray, and some decisions were not at the level expected from a player with his experience. That does not mean one performance defines Beauden Barrett, but it does mean the pressure on him remains significant as the tour moves forward. Another player who impressed on the opposite side was Stormers fly half Yakin Ahmed. Going into the match, the head-to-head between the young Ahmed and his childhood hero Barrett was one of the most intriguing individual battles. By the end of the night, Ahmed had produced a performance that showed confidence well beyond his experience. He made intelligent decisions, managed the game effectively, and showed composure when the Stormers were under pressure. Although his team ultimately lost, his performance provided one of the memorable individual stories from the match. For the All Blacks, however, the bigger concern was not one player. It was the collection of small problems that appeared across the performance. The scrum was one of the clearest areas of concern. Pacilio Tosi came under significant pressure and was penalized several times as the Stormers looked to attack the All Blacks at scrum time. Eventually, Rennie turned to debutant Siale Lawaki, who immediately found himself involved in the pressure of the set piece. Scrummaging is an area that New Zealand will want to improve quickly because the margin for error becomes much smaller against a powerful Springboks pack. The issue was not limited to the front row. Samisoni Taukeiaho, despite scoring a try and contributing strongly around the field, also had difficulties at scrum time. The breakfoot requirement remains an important part of modern rugby's safety standards, and the All Blacks will want greater consistency in following those instructions. Against a team such as South Africa, technical details like these can become extremely important. The high ball was another area that the Stormers identified and attacked successfully. New Zealand struggled at times to control aerial contests, and even experienced players such as Rieko Ione and Beauden Barrett were unable to completely shut down the Stormers' kicking strategy. The Stormers repeatedly put the ball into the air and challenged the All Blacks to make clean decisions under pressure. This was particularly interesting because the All Blacks have had to adapt to changes in the way aerial contests are managed, including the removal of certain escorting tactics. The nation's championship matches had not necessarily exposed that weakness in the same way, but the Stormers showed how quickly an opponent can turn it into a tactical weapon. Then there was discipline. The All Blacks finished the match with 15 penalties, a number that will certainly attract attention inside the coaching group. The opening 20 minutes were particularly concerning, with New Zealand conceding 7 penalties during that period. Against the Stormers, the All Blacks were able to recover and eventually win by 17 points. Against the Springboks, however, repeated penalties can create a very different outcome. South Africa are among the most effective teams in the world at turning pressure and territory into points, so New Zealand will need to be much more controlled. Simon Parker, Anton Lienert-Brown, and later Josh Moorby all found themselves involved in disciplinary moments, with Moorby also conceding a penalty try after receiving a yellow card. These incidents did not prevent New Zealand from winning, but they highlighted the importance of maintaining composure throughout an entire match. Still, it would be unfair to describe the All Blacks' performance as purely negative. There were several strong individual contributions. Peter Lakai looked powerful in contact and showed the aggression required at international level, while Anton Segner continued to demonstrate his willingness to compete in the physical areas of the game. Fabian Holland and Patrick Tuipulotu also provided a solid presence in the second row, helping the All Blacks establish a platform as the match progressed. Cortez Radama added energy to the attack and was sharp around the fringes, while Rieko Ione, Leroy Carter, and Josh Moorby all showed attacking intent with ball in hand. The key issue for some of those backs, however, remained their work under the high ball. From Dave Rennie's perspective, that may actually be one of the most useful outcomes from the match. A comfortable 50-point victory would have produced headlines, but it might not have revealed the same weaknesses. Instead, the Stormers forced New Zealand to work for the result. They challenged the All Blacks physically, tactically, and mentally, and that gave the coaching staff valuable information before the more important matches ahead. Rennie had already indicated that selections for the opening stages of the tour had been planned in advance, including the first test against the Springboks. But performances like this can always create difficult decisions for a coaching staff. Players who were expected to be secure in their positions may now face greater competition, while others who performed well have given themselves a stronger case for future selection. That is particularly relevant in the front row, at fly half, and in the backfield. The performance of Beauden Barrett will naturally attract attention, but the wider question is how the All Blacks want their attacking structure to function when the pressure increases. The match also demonstrated the importance of experience. Deon Fourie may have been on the losing side, but his performance showed how valuable calm decision-making can be in a high-pressure environment. His involvement in Sibelo Sanatla's try was a perfect example of experience creating an opportunity through smart execution rather than simply physical power. For the Stormers, there is plenty to be proud of despite the final score. They suffered injuries, dealt with selection limitations, and still remained competitive for most of the contest. They made the All Blacks uncomfortable, forced mistakes, and showed that the South African sides on this tour are capable of creating genuine challenges. That could be an important warning for New Zealand because the Stormers will not be the only difficult opponent. The Sharks, Bulls, and Lions will also have the opportunity to test the All Blacks, and if they can reproduce the intensity shown by the Stormers, the tour could become increasingly demanding. Ultimately, the 38-21 victory gives New Zealand a positive start to the rugby's greatest rivalry tour, but it also gives Dave Rennie plenty of homework. The All Blacks need to improve their scrum execution, clean up their discipline, become more reliable under the high ball, and find greater consistency in attack. Beauden Barrett also has another opportunity ahead to show that he can turn his experience into the kind of complete performance the team needs. The biggest lesson from Cape Town is simple. The All Blacks won, but they were made to earn it. And perhaps that is exactly what Dave Rennie needed from the opening match. The Stormers exposed flaws, the All Blacks responded, and now the coaching staff have clear areas to work on before the level of competition rises again. The result may read 38-21, but the real story is what New Zealand learned during those 80 minutes. If the All Blacks can correct the problems revealed in Cape Town, this difficult opening could become an important step toward building a stronger team for the biggest challenges still to come. The All Blacks may have